Mr. Ambassador, what a pleasure to see you.
Good to see you too again.
Yes, to reconnect after Geneva, the public forum. One of the things people are extremely interested is what's likely to be the role of trade in terms of sustainable development, in terms of environment protection. Tell me more about where are we today as a whole?
Well, yes, I'm really thrilled also to be part of the efforts of the World Trade Organization members to do what I believe is one of the main important tasks of the organization nowadays, which is to connect trade with environment. We have a mandate that, in fact, the Committee on Trade and Environment was created years ago, but now under the current context and urgencies of the environmental agenda around the globe, I believe the committee has some sort of new responsibility to be ready to respond to what the international community, I think, is waiting, to have a perspective from trade in order to support the goals of the international agenda on environmental issues.
You know, Mr. Ambassador, there are two major concerns. One is that trade policies will hinder the exchange of green goods and technologies. The other thing is there might be green protectionism, on the other hand, using green, quote unquote, as an excuse for trade protectionism. How do you see the two major concerns regarding the relationship between trade policy and the environment?
In my opinion, the World Trade Organization was created in a very specific context, economic context, world context. And now that we have a new challenges as a global community, we need to be also ready to give a step ahead of us and assume the new challenges and the new context that we have in front of us. Meaning, years ago, 2 decades ago, we still did not have enough, I wouldn't say support, but consciousness about the importance and the dramatic impact of climate change. Now the situation is different. We appreciate what is going on in terms of climate effects coming from the climate variation. And I believe from every aspect of international relations, we have to give an answer, give a support, do something about it. So, in other words, from the World Trade Organization perspective, those conversations have to start and take into consideration and try to solve those issues that you mentioned, that somehow the trade tools that are just tools for exchanging goods and services, to put it in very general terms, those tools are not used against something that is very much sick about from the international community. I believe that on the contrary, trade tools have to be used, they have to be useful in order to foster cooperation, to protect the environment, and to advance environmental goals of the whole international agenda.
At this point, I understand from business perspective, there are lack of regulations and clear laws regarding how green practices will be encouraged and recognized. And therefore, that is hindering investment by private sector, for example, to invest with green technologies and also to bring green elements into their businesses worldwide. So there are increasing calls for clarity. Mr. Ambassador, you are sitting in this important chair. What do you make of the call from the business community?
Well, something that I can really witness from my seat as a chairperson of the committee is clearly that much of the times the business is ahead of governments or regulators, because it's not just a matter of having more initiative, but because I see that technology and the implementation of technological decisions with regard to environment are more and more present. And are present not because the businesses want to expand their operations. They do want to do so, but because there is a necessity to do it. I mean, I'm not going to go into details, but there are countries that are rapidly evolving from a clean energy, from a fossil energy matrix to a clean energy matrix. And they are doing that year after year, a very important pace. This is just to mention one case of the whole process of business and green energy and green technology, etc. What I think clearly is that there has to be a more direct connection, involvement of governments with other stakeholders. So, in other words, in this specific issue of trade and environment, I believe that a very important way of doing things to explore is to try to reach to other stakeholders and establish a conversation that, in fact, I believe is going to be very, very productive. I have a couple of examples of that, but I don't want to be, but just concrete what you have asked me about.
We see, I was there at the public forum in Geneva, and I noticed that on the agenda, there are enormous amount of sessions related to how trade and environment are going to be linked and what kind of policies need to be turned out. So I also hear personally from the Director General, Madam Ngozi herself, about the urgency of doing this and her personal determination as the DG. So given the atmosphere in Geneva, particularly in WTO, what do you think is the momentum right now?
I guess this is a good moment in the sense that we are aware, and there is a high degree of awareness, if you want, with regard of the urgency of doing something about the environment nowadays. You know, there are some discussions on trade that easily take decades in solving those discussions, I mean. But with environment, the situation, I think, is different. We cannot, you know, we don't have the advantage, so to say, that many decades before having decisions with regard to climate change.
Or the luxury, right? We don't have the luxury anymore.
That luxury is not longer there. It's never there. It never was there, and is never going to be. You see, the goals with regard to CO2 emissions are there, are next door in terms of human history. So that situation certainly supports the view that Mr. Ngozi transmitted to you in a way that we have to do something urgently, something that is substantive. We do not need just good intentions or good words or whatever, but we need concrete decisions.
How would you describe China's contributions and roles in the ongoing discussion, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, China is a very active member. As a chairperson of the committee, certainly I appreciate the contributions of China in the workings. As a ambassador of a country member, Ecuador, I have to say that with China, where, for example, I talked recently about the initiative of dialogue on plastic pollution. One of the co-coordinators with Ecuador is China. The others are Australia, Morocco, Fiji, and Barbados. So we have a very good sense of going through the right goals and the right objectives. I believe that if every country is going to put as much as it can from its side in order to provoke cooperation and cooperative results at the organization, in the end, we all are going to be better off.
Mr. Ambassador, the Belt and Road Initiative is certainly have a great impact on connectivity around the world. As you know, the BRI is not China's product, but rather China's initiative and been working with countries and economies who are on board. So tell me more about what do you make as an ambassador coming from a developing country on the impact of a BRI, and what does that mean for trade As you know, these days it's very much an updated version, not just about infrastructure, physical infrastructure anymore. It's more about digital infrastructure, green infrastructure, sustainability, and people-to-people exchanges.
My country, Ecuador, joined the initiative, and we clearly have in mind to the Belt and Road initiative and programs as a way of connecting to other countries. My country, Ecuador, has the projection to the Pacific as one of its main goals in terms of foreign policy. We want to reach countries that are in the other side of the ocean, the biggest ocean in the world. So now appreciating this new, some sort of update of the initiative, incorporating green and digital consideration as well, I think they are welcome. Both environment and digitalization are part of the modern world. We've seen the importance of environment. We've been talking minutes ago about how the WTO environment is somehow one of the main issues to be discussed. So why not having the same approach at the Belt and Road, I believe, will enrich the opportunities of cooperation that the initiative will help in order to foster among states that are members of the initiative a more concrete integration into common benefit progress.
Mr. Ambassador, I think those are wonderful input from your side. And thank you so much for your generosity of time and also suggestions. Appreciate it, Mr. Ambassador.
A pleasure. Very, very nice to talk to you. Thanks a lot.